So welcome in everybody to Studio B, and welcome formally to the third lesson in this 12-week series that's an introduction to Yin Yoga. And today we are going to talk about stress, but we're going to talk about it kind of underneath the umbrella of the fairy tale of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. So we're all pretty familiar with that fairy tale, and the kind of ultimate takeaway is the whole like not too hot, not too cold, but just right. And it takes Goldilocks a few tries to find that perfect middle space. And that is often the work that we're doing in Yin Yoga as well, as we're trying to find that perfect middle space where the sensation is not too much, not too little, but just enough. And in terms of stress, we can actually really visit this by using the language we've used the last couple of weeks of the yin and the yang. So stress is totally normal. And in fact, we need a certain amount of stress to maintain optimal health for our system. It's why we go to the gym and work out and lift weights. It's why we go for a run to stress the heart. Because if we didn't do those things, there would actually be weakness that would develop by not having enough stress to maintain optimal functioning of the system. With that said, most of us tend to have too much yang, too much stress. And when you have too much, life is going to give you yin, whether you want it or not, whether it's in the form of an injury or an illness. The yin is going to make its way into your life. So we might as well do it in a purposeful way by doing a practice like we're doing tonight. So when you're in the poses today, using the props like we learned about last week, you're trying to find that place in each shape where you're aware of the sensation. You're aware that you're at this sort of edge where you're kind of growing. There's some sort of development happening, but it's not so much that the breath is strained. And the breath is one of the best ways for you to check in and see, like, am I in that Goldilocks place? Because if you can't take a relaxed, normal breath where you are, you're probably too far on that yang side of being a little bit too stressed in the pose. So we don't want to be grinning and bearing it in these shapes. Sensation is good, but only if you can still maintain a natural, easeful breath. Okay, so we're going to do 3 shapes today. There are 3 shapes we have not yet done in the series, so they're all new to us. And we're going to begin with probably my favorite yin pose of all, which is half butterfly. So in the half butterfly position, we're going to extend the left leg forward, and then you hug the right knee in, so it's like a half butterfly's wing. That's why it's called half butterfly. And I like to use a bolster for this one. If you are someone that the hamstrings are really tight in your body, know that you can always either move the bolster this way so that it meets you here. You can even, I have students that will bring it up this way and kind of hug it and be here. So again, that idea of the prop coming to you. And then we're just going to fold forward and find where you naturally land in the shape. And as you come into this first pose, again, you might notice that the movement of the mind is still really present. And remembering that our intention here is to be spending time in the joints, in the connective tissue, and the fascia. And so we're really mindfully disengaging the muscles. And so right now that might look like relaxing the sole of your left foot. Really softening around the left knee joint. One of the many beauties of this half butterfly pose is it's incredibly multifaceted. We get the benefit of stretching the hamstrings and the entire posterior side of the left side of the body here. But we also get the benefit of a a gentle hip opening. And then that natural calming outcome of being in a forward fold. Taking about 3 to 4 more breaths here. And then as you prepare to come out, you might slide the palms back. And as you press the palms down, gently lifting the torso. As you find yourself upright, maybe just pause for a breath or two. You were forward folded for several minutes, so give yourself a moment to arrive. And then we're going to shift. We're actually going to do the second pose on this same side of the body. We're going to do half saddle. So the left leg is not really going to change at all. However, I am going to shimmy forward on my mat a little bit. But we're going to take the spine completely in the opposite direction. So the bolster can come behind you now so that it's elevated. And you're going to take this right leg and internally rotate it so that that right foot is outside the right hip. Now, for some people, particularly if we have any tenderness in the knees or the ankles, this might not be accessible. And in that case, you could always stay in that half butterfly position if this is antagonizing to the joints. For some people, the top of the ankle is really tender, so you could also flex and kind of have the foot turned out. For some people, that's a more comfortable position. So you can kind of play with it, see what works for you. And then we're going to start to move backwards. And you could begin by just bringing the hands behind you. And depending on your body, this may be really intense. Okay? And then others have the ability to start to lower down, either onto the forearms or even all the way back onto your bolster. And you may find that this is you're already at that Goldilocks position. For some people, they feel like maybe there's a little bit more for me to go into. So the final offering would be to take the arms and actually bring them overhead, really kind of amplifying this sense of opening across the front of the chest. This really allows the breath to move all the way up into the apex of the lungs. Particularly when we spend so much time seated at our desks or behind the wheel of a car, on a couch. Opening the body in this sort of way is really recalibrating. As we begin to embrace this idea of the Goldilocks principle, we become more skillful at identifying our personal boundaries. And so as we become more skillful at identifying the physical boundaries of the body, how far it can go in a particular shape, we really nurture that skill set of honoring our boundaries in a myriad of ways. Giving yourself one last breath here in half saddle position. And then skillfully making your way out by using the arms as much as possible to guide you back upright, and then pausing for a moment. That was a really deep back bend. And then we'll lean away from this bent leg so that it can release forward. And you might find you need to kind of bend and straighten that knee a few times, kind of getting out any achiness or tenderness there. I'm gonna turn around so that the second side is more visible for you all. But we're gonna return to that half butterfly on the second side now. So the right leg will extend forward and the left knee will come in. And just a reminder, if the left knee ever found itself kind of floating high up, you could always bring in a second prop underneath the knee here. So knowing you could do that. And then when you're ready, folding forward into your half butterfly. And sometimes this process of finding the Goldilocks position is exactly that. It's a process. And so you may find that you have to make some adjustments in the pose, even though we're trying to be still. Sometimes we go too far initially, and so as we marinate in the pose, we realize we need to come out a bit in order to really honor our boundaries. And so in this way, working with the Goldilocks principle is parallel to working with your own intuition. Trusting that there is an intuitive wisdom within each of you that knows the right place to be in the shape, knows what's right for your body. And so the real work of the practice is listening to that intuition. As we spend the last few breaths here, you might scan the body and see if there's anywhere that you could soften. As we prepare to come out, again using the arms and gently pressing up, and really honoring that transition is part of the practice, so trying to really stay connected here. And then as we move into the half saddle, you're going to switch the bolster behind you. And then the left leg is gonna move into that internal rotation. And so you might pause for a minute, just make sure this is okay with the body. Sometimes I have to move my calf out of the way. And then as you're ready, taking your time to start to come back. So maybe it's just to the hands. Maybe you lower to the forearms, or perhaps all the way to the bolster. And then the final option would be to take the arms overhead. There's a quote by Lao Tzu that says, "At the center of your being, you know who you are and you know what you want." At the center of your being, you know who you are and you know what you want. To me, what this quote speaks to is this intuition within each one of us that knows where it needs to be, that has this intuitive sense of inner balance. And how empowering it is that this sense of knowing is inside of me. I don't have to find it anywhere else. But this intuitive sense of balance is something within me. Taking your time, the next breath, the arms coming down, and slowly lifting back up. And just pausing and seeing how that feels. And then leaning away from that left leg to gently extend it forward. Maybe you need to bend and straighten the knee a couple of times. And then the final shape that we're going to do today is building upon that back bending that we did in the half saddle. You can do it with a bolster, but I actually prefer to do it with 2 blocks. So you can decide which one you'd like to do. I'm going to move my bolster out of the way and bring in my 2 blocks. And this is supported fish pose. And we're going to put 1 block for the head at the highest height, and then another block which will go right beneath the shoulder blades, or kind of where a sports bra would be located, at the medium height. And so we're gonna lay ourselves with, again, right below the shoulder blades on that medium block, and then the head comes underneath that high block. So there's this sense of kind of being held by the blocks, and if you get them in the right place, it should actually feel really yummy. And then just letting the arms elongate alongside you. Legs are utterly relaxed. And if you find that the elevation of the blocks is too much, knowing that you could always lower them. That medium block could go to low, and the high block could go down to medium. Again, connecting with that Goldilocks principle of recognizing your own boundaries. Checking in with the breath here. Maybe reminding yourself that the breath is one of the primary measures of if you're in a state of balance, if you're in that space of not too much, not too little, but just enough. Noticing where the mind travels in those moments of quiet. And if you notice the mind has left the practice, you might just extend a very kind invitation for it to come back. Allowing yourself one more breath here, unrushed. And then being cognizant that you're on these blocks. Some people prefer to roll to one side, others prefer to sit up. We are going to move into our Shavasana for a resting position. And I today am actually going to put the blocks behind each knee, which is a way that I often take Shavasana. And then coming flat on my back. And we'll give ourselves about 2 minutes. You might check in with your sense of touch, becoming aware of all of the parts of body that are in contact with something. And see if you can soften all of those parts of the body. You might check in with your sense of hearing, any sounds in your environment. And instead of finding them as distractions, see if you can just welcome them in as part of the experience. Checking in with the eyes and just letting them rest heavily in the eye socket. Checking in with the nose and the sense of smell.
allowing the breath to effortlessly flow in and out of the nose. And finally, checking in with the tongue, resting heavily in the base of the mouth, relaxing there. If you'd like to stay here in Shavasana for a longer period of time, you're welcome to do so. If this is the time that you set aside for your practice, you can allow the breath to deepen and subtle movement to enter the fingers and toes. And then as you're ready in your own way and in your own time, bringing yourself back up to a comfortable seat.
Maybe closing the eyes just for these final few moments of practice. Thinking about what it means to not do too much and not do too little. Maybe even just really checking in with how the body is feeling just now. Maybe recognizing that this is what balance feels like in the body. Just really noticing what balance feels like. At the center of your being, you know who you are and you know what you want. Let's bring the palms of the hands together in gratitude, sealing this practice. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om Peace, Peace, Peace. Jai Shri Sakuru Maharaj Ki.